I'm Becky Meagher, and welcome to Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. Transitions, we all go through transitions in our life, and I like to use the metaphor of triathlon, something I've been doing for 13 years. In a triathlon, first you swim, then you get in a transition area, then you bike, transition again, and then you run. And we oftentimes need guidance in our transitions. And we have a gentleman here, Garrett McLaughlin, who can help you in your run, in getting your body ready to do endurance sports, in getting your body ready to exercise. And he has a vast array of things to tell us. He has an immense experience from working with coaching with teams and individuals. And enough of this. We need to talk to Garrett here. Garrett, welcome. Glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Becky.
Can you explain to our audience, and we also have a other show that goes into more detail, explain what you actually do, your business here in Nashville, Tennessee.
So what I do is I'm an athletic trainer and do some strength conditioning as well. So I work with runners, triathletes, the general population to really look at the body from a function standpoint, help them move better, stay injury-free or recover from injury, and then also work towards achieving health and fitness goals. So it could be anything from movement, personal training sessions to manual therapy and active release techniques. There's a couple different ways where how I work with these athletes and general population.
Okay. And we, in the first show that we did a long biography, but tell us how you even started to work with, your own body in high school. Tell us that, what kind of sports you did and how you even went on this path.
So throughout high school, I was always doing something, whether hockey, baseball, and soccer were my three main sports.
And this was where?
This was in Medford, Massachusetts, so just outside of Boston.
Okay.
So was very active through high school, growing up my entire life. We weren't playing sports. We were running around and baseball, football, hockey in the streets.
Wow.
So always wanted to be around athletics and athletes and active individuals as much as possible. So what I decided, and through a couple injuries in high school, I went to a local physical therapy clinic, which actually was within a Division III university. So got a chance to work with that physical therapist as he interacted and worked with the college athletes. So I got to see what he did on a daily basis, and I really loved just kind of that laid-back environment of working with the athletes. Obviously, some situations really do get stressful, again, trying to get someone back to their sport, whether it's a championship game or a playoff game or something like that.
Wow, right,
but
important.
got a chance to see him work with them on a daily basis and really loved that his profession, which was physical therapy, but more specifically with sports teams. So from there, I decided to look at schools for college as athletic training, sports medicine was the major, and went to Quinnipiac University, which is in Connecticut, and really worked towards, worked with different athletes when it comes to orthopedics and injuries and rehabilitation, but also got to see the other aspects of things like traveling with the team and insurance and the different general medical problems like different illnesses and things like that. So it was really a vast kind of array of experiences which I was exposed to.
Okay. All right, so you got your degree is in your bachelor degree. Your first degree is in, what do you call that?
It's called athletic training, sports medicine.
Okay.
So it's the orthopedic side of physical therapy, but specifically working with a sports team.
Okay. All right, and then the next thing, you went from New England down to Florida, right?
I did. I did a 2-year graduate assistantship down at Florida International University in Miami. So what I did was for 2 years, worked on my master's degree while also working with primarily the men's soccer and women's tennis team down there. So traveling with the teams, working with the injuries, and had a great experience over 2 years.
And that was soccer and tennis?
Soccer and tennis, yes.
All right, so they would have different body injuries depending on what they're hitting, or, you know, the ball on their head or the tennis ball or whatever.
Yeah, there was a lot of differences. A lot of lower extremity injuries through both ankle sprains and hamstring strains, hip flexor strains. Tennis, obviously, a lot more shoulder, a lot more spine, neck injuries. So it was good to really get exposed to a lot of different injuries early on.
Okay. All right, so you had that, and then you had a master's degree in all this.
I did. I did.
Yes.
Yeah. Master's degree was very based on exercise physiology, so nutrition, biomechanics, strength conditioning, speed, agility, and different training techniques for athletes to be faster and stronger, jump higher. So it was interesting complement from the orthopedic side to really look at more now, how do we get these athletes to perform better?
And it sounds like a real holistic approach. It's not just this exercise, it's what are you eating, what's your lifestyle, all the above.
Right, oh yes, all aspects of it really, which is interesting because I mean so many different diets and techniques and things that come out throughout the years, so really try to comb through the research and see what works, and I think we're still learning a lot as we go too, different techniques that are better than others and more proven.
And then you went up to Michigan, I believe. You found love, went to Michigan.
I did.
Yeah, and then worked with high school?
Yes, so moved up to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Actually worked in Dearborn, Michigan, which was just a Detroit suburb. So worked at a big high school there, and high school for the sports med side is very chaotic. There's so many moving pieces, so many different teams from freshman, JV, varsity going on at all times. So if you looked outside, you'd see every single field was taken up from some kind of practice or game or event going on.
Wow.
So try to work with those athletes, try to work on keeping them injury-free. Any injuries, aches, pains, we dealt with that as we went through, but we were affiliated with the hospital system, so any other surgeries, anything more extensive, we could refer out to the doctors, or physical therapy if it was going to be more of a long-term rehab. So it was a really good experience.
And that was working with anything from 14 to 18-year-olds?
Yes, yep, 14
wow,
to 18.
And just psychologically working with them, let alone their bodies and all that. What a great experience.
It was a great experience, yep. A lot of different injuries, a variety of sports, so get good exposure to seeing everything.
I think we mentioned before, and you were working with the parents.
Right, right.
So your abilities to work with people in addition to the children's bodies, young adults' bodies and all that, and helping them cope with injuries and all that. What a great experience that must have been.
Right, yes, a lot of different professionals I got to work with, the strength conditioning staff, the athletic directors, other teams. We had a variety of professionals that were working with the athletes, so it was a great experience.
Well, with all this vast experience, let's fast forward to Nashville, okay, where you're in Middle Tennessee now, and tell us specifically more the people that come to you, and you have a fabulous website, by the way, and we're going to put that on the credits. Specifically, people come to you for what now? Because you're the man, you are your own company.
I am. So wear a lot of different hats here. We have a couple different ways and different avenues that I work with clients now. A lot of primarily runners, endurance athletes, but also still see high school athletes, still see general population. So what I do is work with people from more of a health and longevity standpoint. How can we help achieve that health and fitness goal while also staying injury-free or in recovering from physical therapy to take that next step towards their goals? So it really spans across the continuum from pain to also performance.
Okay. All right. So somebody comes to you and says, I was a track person in high school. It's been 15 years since I really ran. Help me. And they can physically see you, and they have an option to do it once a week or four times or once a month, and then tell us more about what you actually do for them.
Okay, so everyone that comes to see me, we always start with a success session. So it's a 30-minute consultation where we'll really dive deep into what do they really want to achieve, but then also look back of what is your athletic history, what is your background, any aches, pains, orthopedic or medical issues that we need to consider when moving forward, and then really try to set them up in a plan or a program that best fits them. So just like you described, it's either do they need the accountability to come see me 1, 2, or 3 times a week? Are there someone that we just need to fine-tune their program because they're not being specific enough or working in the right direction to get to those goals successfully? So some people come in and we do training sessions, we do therapy sessions. Other people, we just check in once a month and we fine-tune their program and we set them on their way because they're doing a good job on their own, staying motivated and getting to the gym and working on their exercises.
And then what we're going to be having too in the second part of this program is actually demonstrating some of these various movements that you teach people. You teach them how to do it. It's also on your website. And there is warm-up movements, which we are going to see. And then there is something called ART. Tell us more about what that is. That seems to be something that's batted around lately. And did you have to have special training for doing this ART thing?
Yeah, ART is still, it's popular within certain realms. Ironman, triathlon realm, it's more popular. Some people have no idea what it is, but what ART is, it's called active release techniques. So it's a type of soft tissue manual therapy where you're looking for certain muscles or tissues that either are tight or not moving the way they should, because you're trying to restore range of motion and movement or reduce aches and pains. So it's a type of soft tissue manual therapy that really addresses those things. So what I do with the ART sessions, we always run through kind of the same orthopedic evaluation you do for anything else. What is the problem? How's their range of motion? What's limiting them or causing their pain? And then with ART, with some kind of movement, some kind of corrective movement, we really kind of create a program for them to help get over that. I mean, sometimes it takes a few sessions, sometimes it could take 6 to 12 months, but it's really a good supplement to a rehabilitation program.
So in addition to people actually doing their own exercise, you do things manually, manipulatively with your hands, when we'll have a demonstration of that too, that helps the muscles, I don't know, release. I guess that's what it's all about.
Right. Yeah, ART, you're working on muscle tightness, tension, but also looking at nerve entrapments too. So things like carpal tunnel syndrome or sciatic nerve entrapment, looking for where is that nerve becoming entrapped between specific muscles or areas of the body to help release and regain proper function or reduce pain. So there's a couple of different ways or ways you can use active release techniques.
And something like, I know a lot of runners I talk to have complained about something called plantar fasciitis, which some people say, oh, I can never run anymore, I have that. Now, if somebody comes to you and says that, first of all, explain what it is to the people out there that don't know and how you cure it.
So plantar fasciitis is a little bit tricky. It's very common. A lot of times people are increasing their activity too quickly.
And what's it mean?
So the plantar fascia is this sheet of tissue on the bottom of the foot. It's almost like a shock absorber and really provides a lot of structure for the foot itself. So from running, and I mean, it can be anyone really, it doesn't have to be necessarily a runner, but when we start to put too much stress on that tissue, we overload the tissue and it starts to create an inflammatory process. The plantar fasciitis now is, a lot of times you don't really see the typical swelling that you see, so it's more of a what's called a tendinopathy than a tendinitis. So what you need to do with that is with ART, with dry needling, with progressively loading the plantar fasciitis and the tissues over a period of time is to teach that tissue how to function more like a normal healthy tissue again. So a lot of times that takes, with plantar fasciitis, if it's been lingering for years, so I see a lot of people that it's been going on for 2-3 years, that could take up to 6 to 12 months actually to restore, to feel better.
Wow, the fact that they can feel better is pretty miraculous.
Right, it takes time, a lot of time and patience.
And do you do dry needling?
I do not, no.
Okay. But other people can do that, and then that's something that you can send people to.
Yes, dry needling is very good for plantar fasciitis. With giving them the right, a lot of times it's with these injuries, it's not just looking at the plantar fascia, but what else is going on with the body? Is there anything at the hips or the spine? So really taking a more well-rounded approach to looking at the entire body and not just the foot. So I think that's often where people get caught. They always work on, what can I do? They roll the bottom of the foot with a water bottle or work on just calf stretching, and there's a lot more to it many times. So it's kind of opening your eyes and looking around.
Looking at the whole body and everything is so connected.
Right, yep.
Yeah. Yep. Wow, very good. Well, we're going to have an exciting part next, which is Garrett is actually going to demonstrate on a human being what we've been talking about and what people can actually do to stretch and change their lives and not just talk. We're actually going to demonstrate it. So hold on and see what's going to happen next. Garrett is going to give us demonstrations with the help of Jack Tamil, the tall gentleman next to him, on exactly what he's been talking about for the exercises. take us away here to explain warm up and go and show us with Jack here.
Okay, so I think that one of the biggest areas people tend to overlook is the dynamic warm-up and really jump into exercise so quickly when it comes to resistance training, strength training, running, or just whatever activity it is. So what I want to do with Jack here is run through a basic dynamic warm-up that shows you just different things that you can do on your own that are very simple, no equipment needed. You can do it outside, can do it in your house, in your living room, and it's just very simple, so there's really no excuse. You can do this on your own. So what we're going to do here first is very general, just work on a leg swing. So all Jack is going to do is just comfortably going forward and backward, swinging the leg, try to swing through the hip. So a good thing about this one here, as you see there, we can work on a lot of balance as well. So if you felt like this was shaky and he needs to hold on to something, he can hold on to a wall or a fence if he's out on the road. But just going about 5 or 10 swings or so, going through the hip. And Jack, when you come, I want you to come all the way back, swing behind the body. So you're going both directions. So swinging through the hip. So really working on balance and stability, but loosening up the muscles and the joint at the hip itself. So making sure to do both sides, and if he notices any weakness or loss of stability on one side versus the other side, that would be one that he could throw a couple extra reps on just to work on, because you want to make sure we're not different from side to side, we're somewhat symmetrical. So from there, what he would do is we're going to come across the body, so nice and slowly, coming across in front, and then opening up to the side. All we're doing is changing the plane of motion, so now working a little more on these adductors muscles, the groin muscles, and also the muscles from the outside of the hip. So sometimes a little bit harder to balance in this position than the forward and back one, but just taking his time, working on the balance, and then switching over to the other side as well. Again, seeing any more tightness on one side versus the other side. So this is just a very general way just to loosen up, just to focus on getting moving rather than jumping in harder dynamic warm-up exercises. So next one, we're going to have Jack down to the ground. So this one is called a Spider-Man lunge. So if you go down to a push-up position, Jack, on all fours. So what we're going to do now, it's a little more focused on hip mobility and hip flexibility. He's going to take a big step with his right leg, stepping all the way up forward, trying to get to the foot towards the outside of the hand. And he's going to try to sink down towards the ground to really open up the right hip. He's going to hold for a couple seconds and then step back. So now compared to the leg swings we did a second ago, and let's go left side, Jack. So we're going to switch from side to side. We're working a little bit deeper into the range of motion. So depending on what he's warming up for specifically, again, we can be more specific with our exercises, but this right here is a very general hip mobility exercise. And let's do one more per side. So big step, sinking down, and now switching to the other side. What we could also do here, one thing a lot of people could really benefit from, if you step back, Jack, and do one more time on your right side, as he steps forward with that right leg, if he lifts up his right arm and reaches his fingertips towards the ceiling, coming up, and try to look at your fingertips as you rotate, really open up through his upper back here. So now we're working on the hips, but also the spine, and then lower back down with the right hand, switch the leg back, and then switching to the other side. And now left hand comes up, rotates, so now we're adding more of a rotation. One of the biggest areas people are limited in is their thoracic spine, this mid portion of the back, and then relax right there. So depending on what you're warming up for, and let's have you stand up for a second, Jack. Depending on what you're warming up for, the next step could be reverse lunge. So now getting more upright, moving through the range of motion rather than swinging the leg or something on the ground. So Jack, if you just stand on one leg, you step back, lower into your lunge, and then come up forward and balance at the top. So I want you to go through that motion all the way. Now come up and step forward, balance, good. So working through the lunge. Now, again, you think of what's going on, knees, hips, balance and stability at the ankle and the hip. We're really working a lot of muscles here with the lower body and getting a lot of balance as well. So let's try the other side. And just like everything else, if he notices any weakness or loss of balance, that's the side that he'll want to work on a little bit more regularly just to make sure he balances out from one side to the next. And that's perfect right there. Good. After that, because those are a few lower body ones, something as simple as going through an arm swing motion. So palms facing, coming all the way up through the shoulders, and then extending all the way past the body. So he really wants to control his body as much as possible so he's not moving so much through the spine, but really isolating the shoulder joint. Just to open up the shoulders. Again, even if you're running, and we think if it's very lower body dominant, opening up and loosening up the shoulders to get ready for the arm swing motion is important. So those are a few basic dynamic warm-up drills that you can do before any kind of activity, really. But if we look at running, one thing I like to do after the dynamic warm-up is some kind of jumping and landing, so plyometrics. One thing we often overlook with running is how much force is placed on the body during every time you strike and hit the ground. So what we want to do is really take that next step from these stationary, more controlled exercises to then landing and absorbing forces. So what we're going to do here with Jack first is what's called the vertical jump. We're just going to teach him how to jump off the ground, push off from the ankles and the legs, and land as softly as possible. So if he brings the arms back, he's going to come up, jump, come down nice and softly, yep, sinking into the legs. And let's try 5 jumps. Not worrying so much about the jump as much as the landing and really absorbing, teaching your body how to absorb the impact and get ready for that repetitive bounding motion, which is running. Okay, so that's the first step there with the vertical jump. Next one we're going to work on is ankle hops. So we're going to speed up the motion just a little bit and be a little more forceful off the feet and the ankles. So on the toes, nice quick jumps. I usually don't throw a lot of these in, about 10 or so, and then he can rest and reset. And then on the next one, working on it being a little more explosive because we really want to develop elasticity and power from the legs. So next one, he's going to try to get up a little bit higher and spend more time in the air. And now try to keep your knees nice and straight and focus just on the ankles. And rest. See? So you can see now heart rate's trying to get up a little bit more. He's starting to work up a sweat here. So that is the next step, working on the ankles. And then from here, since running is so single leg dominant, if you're going out to run or strength training, you have a lot of single leg exercises, we're going to want to do some kind of jumping exercise on one leg. So if Jack goes on one leg, this one is a little bit tricky. He's going to go on one leg here. He's going to jump up, land, control it, and then come back up. So now working a little more on balance. And when you come up with your left leg up and then lower down on your right. Yep. So now loading the body just on that one leg to be a little more specific to running. A little bit harder. Some people have really struggled with this one early on. So it takes some time to work on and to really develop that balance and the control as you come down. Yep, and just work on your balance as you land. So a little bit harder this one, obviously. So the biggest thing for a lot of people, and you can rest right there, Jack. Biggest thing for a lot of people on this is finding your starting point. If this is something he struggles with, we might find, hey, what is the step before this exercise? What do we need to master first? And then I think, especially what we'll go into in a second, that strength training is really important for Jack to really develop the balance and the strength to control the jumping, which would be very important for him to really master that step. So, strength training?
Yeah, strength training.
Okay.
Okay, now that was just warm-up training, right?
Warm-up training right there.
Okay,
Yep.
So how about a little strength training?
Okay. So with strength training, we have a couple exercises we're going to test here on Jack. But our first one is what's called a split squat. So a split squat is a stationary lunge. So if he steps in this this long lunge position, all we're going to work on is having him lower that back knee straight down to the ground and then push up from his front leg to come back up. So he's going to go through about 5 reps or so. Again, putting him in this what's called the split stance position. So he works on a lot of the balance and stability. And Jack, for a second, could you face forward? Yep. So go into the same position. So if you look at the position here, what we're really working on is control at the foot and the hip. So a lot of times you'll see, when you watch people run at the Greenway or doing marathons, you'll see this knee wanting to really collapse. So let your knee fall inward for a second. Now lower down like that. So you'll see that knee really tracking inward, and you see more of an angle at the hip. That's something where, with this split squat and these single leg exercises, we're really trying to control the body as much as possible to work on balance and stability. So try the other side. See if you feel any different on that side. So biggest thing with strength training is seeing when you do split stance or single leg exercises, any big difference from one leg to the other, because we really want to make sure the body is balanced as much as possible. So these exercises a lot of times will show you that. Do you notice any difference on that?
Yeah, my left side is not as stable.
Okay. So if we notice that as we start to add resistance and make it a little more challenging, we might add an extra set on the left side just to build that up and equal out from side to side. So from there, if that's easy for Jack, which he did a pretty good job with, we could either add resistance or we can make the exercise a little more challenging. So this one is called the rear foot elevated split squat. So same position, but his back foot's going to be up on the chair, bench, a stair at home. It could be anywhere. And then from here, so you can see a lot more balance, a lot more loading on this front leg. And what he's going to try to do is bend his back knee straight down to the ground, control it, and then pull up from his front leg. So the front leg's doing most of the work.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Step forward a little more. Give yourself a little more space. So you can see a little bit more challenge. You can see him having to balance before he goes and then lowering down from that left knee and then pulling up from the right leg. Yep. So good thing about this and with some of these exercises, you can see his back leg up on the bench. It's kind of similar to you see people doing traditional quad stretches. So we're working on a lot of flexibility and stability as well. So now trying the other side. So on his left leg now, and then dropping straight down. Yep, and pulling up from that left leg. Yep, so let's try one more. So with all these exercises, always able to add resistance or make them more challenging if you need to.
And I think we have time for the ART, that interesting release technique that you have learned. Can you demonstrate that?
I can. So Jack, if you want to sit down for a second. So active release techniques we'll demonstrate here on his forearm, even though you can work on any tissue or muscle, tendon, ligament throughout the body, also next to a lot of nerves. But all we're doing with ART is we have to really know anatomy as much as possible. So if we think of these forearm muscles, we're going to shorten up these forearm muscles by bending the wrist. I'm going to find wherever that area of tightness or restriction is. As I find that spot, and I'm working, kind of placing pressure into that tissue, placing up to where it attaches, and then I'm moving his wrist through the range of motion. So you can see here he's a little bit tight through the wrist joint.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he needs some work on these muscles to help release, grab, get more range of motion. But very popular working on some of these forearm muscles, especially here in Nashville, a lot of guitarists and drummers and musicians. Also people that work at desks. There's a lot of different techniques, unless you bend your elbow a little bit, to work on different muscles. So it's not the same motion for every muscle. You're looking at what is the action of that muscle and how do you shorten the muscle and then lengthen to move through the range of motion. So that's a little bit about active release. Can always do this. Lower body, a lot of people with leg injuries, hamstring strains, hip flexor strains, a lot of tension in the back and the spine that we can work on to loosen up. So it's really effective for that.
Wow. I think that's, I think this is really been great to watch this, because this is something I need also. So I want to thank you, Garrett McLaughlin. We have the killer website, and we have that on our credits. And I invite everyone to contact him and learn these wonderful techniques. And thank you, Jack Tamil, for being a good sport and being this. I appreciate it. And that is Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. We've had such a good time doing this, and we really welcome people to give us ideas of anyone else that might wish to be on the program to help their body, their mind, their spirit. You name it. It's really fun. So Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. Garrett, thank you. Jack, thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you.